Hey y'all, it's Santana, aka Tana's Book Diary, and I'm back with another video. Happy New Year. Welcome. It is a brand new year. I'm so excited for all the things I want to do this year on my channel. And I appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed, liked, and commented. I'm just so excited to see what this year will look like. But yeah, so based off the title, I will be giving you all my 5-star reads of 2025. I have a long list of 5-star reads. I kind of give out my 5-star reads loosely, I guess, compared to like a lot of other people. They're very strict on their 5-star reads. My rating system is just based off how I feel in the moment after reading the book. Very rarely do I change my mind unless I reread the book, which is also a kind of a rarity. But one book in this collection I did reread. So my score, I think, or my rating did change, but for the better. I will be looking at my phone because this is all the books I read this year with the rating next to it. Some of them are audiobooks, so I'll put the picture of the book on the side, on the screen somewhere. Then I will show you guys the physical books I have on me. So yeah, let's get into it. First is Flamboyance by George M. Johnson. It's a much longer title. I will put the picture on the screen. It's a beautiful cover. It was the first book I finished in 2025, a great way to kick off the year. It's about Black trailblazers in the 1920s during the Harlem Renaissance that were queer or part of the LGBTQ community that we were either very aware of or didn't know anything about. I love history, especially history about like the Harlem Renaissance. So I knew a few of the featured people. So Duke Ellington, I knew Ma Rainey, I knew Josephine Baker, but there were some other names like Countee Cullen that I had no idea about. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. I love George M. Johnson. They wrote All Boys Aren't Blue. If I'm correct, that's the title. I listened to that audiobook last year. And when I tell you it was an emotional roller coaster, but it's well written and I recommend it to any and everybody. It is banned in a lot of states and schools, but the material itself, while it's heavy and mature, I think it's very needed and necessary for that perspective to be, for the masses to be able to read and educate themselves. So anyway, they wrote this book and I truly enjoyed it because it had a lot of excerpts of actual writings from each of the figures that he was highlighting. And then I loved the jazz and that blues influence that was kind of spread throughout the audiobook. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. It's a very short listen, but it's jam-packed with great information and things that we did not know about these icons that we talk about so much, but we didn't realize, or you just didn't know that so many of our Black figures were part of the LGBTQ community. It's great to learn, but it's also part of you feels like really saddened that they could not fully express themselves. But to hopefully, most of them are not alive, but I hope that, you know, with that book, you can see like how within time we have progressed somewhat in letting people be able to live their authentic true selves and be able to express themselves in however they see fit. I love Flamboyance. That was my first 5-star read of 2025. My second one was also a 5-star read. It was Belly of the Beast by Deshaun L. Harrison. That was also an audiobook. This book was about anti-Blackness and anti-fatness in America and how they both interconnect. And I cannot think off the top all of the gems that I got from that read, but I just know that Deshaun, they really were very detailed in their sources. And it was also a short listen as well, but it was so informative. It was mature. So just be like weary of that. So that was my second 5-star read of January 2025. For February, I listened to Broke Down Profits by S.A. Cosby on Audible for free. I think I did like the free trial. It was narrated by multiple actors, one who shall not be named. Brian Tyree Henry and Dasha Polanco were 2 out of the 3 actors that were featured on Broke Down Profits. It's about these 3 kind of con artists. So they send out Dasha Polanco's character into a hotel room. She gets with these guys who are like super rich. She kind of, you know, gives them a good night, and then they rob them, the two guys. And so basically we kind of start really hot, where we're in the middle of her having like this interaction with this guy in this hotel room, and they're robbing him, and it just completely goes left. Like, dude dies, they steal the money, and we follow them on this multi-day kind of chase with this money because the guy stole that money from someone else. So now that person is after them. So it was crazy. Anything S.A. Cosby, I'm going to read it. And most of the time it is a 5-star read. I enjoyed having like the multiple actors because I'm used to listening to S.A. Cosby's books with just Adam Lazar White. But I like that it was different people, lots of different sound usage. So like we could hear the cars driving by when they were in the speed chase. We could hear the doors locking when they were trying to hide. Like, it was super interactive and I loved it. And it was also a very short audiobook, like 4 to 5 hours. So I listened to it like in one day, mostly in the car, which is the best place, honestly, to listen to audiobooks. I was truly engrossed in the high speed chase. I love a thriller. That's mainly what I listen to on audiobook, or like social sciences kind of books are mainly what I listen to on audio. So that was my 5-star read of February. On to March, my first physical book that I gave 5 stars was Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. I love her. I used to listen to slam poetry so much in high school. I thought I could be a poet myself. That did not go anywhere. I'm not really a writer, so yeah. Had a lot of thoughts though, but I just could never put it down on paper. Read this one, and I will always support her. She's also one of those people that usually most of her books are always going to be 5 stars. This is a family drama, and I love dramas. I love family dramas. I love anything that will dive deep into generations and talk about generational curses and traumas, mainly so I can avoid unpacking my own. Let me stop. I'm going to therapy, so I'm definitely on that journey of trying to unpack and unlearn, but sometimes you can't help but revert to your old ways sometimes when you get with certain people. So this was kind of like a good example of multiple generations of women who all love each other, but sometimes they can be each other's kryptonite, or what they have going on in their own personal life can be what's creating the tension or the trauma. We follow Fleur, we follow Matilda, Pastora, and Camilla, as well as their kids, Ona and Yadi, and they live in New York City. And I think when I put a review out, I said I felt like I was in their home. I felt like I was sitting in the living room on the couch as the drama would unfold. It was a bit of magical realism mixed in. Fleur she almost had like these premonitions and could tell the future, when someone would have a child, when someone would pass, if someone was sick. And basically she plans her own funeral, but she wants to be there. Because she's like, how is this about me and I'm not going to be there to enjoy it? And how can I make it how I want it to be because it's my funeral? So it was interesting. I really enjoyed this book. It was very emotional for me just because I have a lot of women in my family, especially my mom's. No, honestly, on both sides of my family, it's women heavy, a lot of matriarchs. And sometimes we kind of put our grandmothers and our mothers, our aunts on these pedestals, and we don't see them sometimes as human beings. And then when you look at them as humans, it kind of scares you a little bit because it's like they're going through life just like you for the first time. And it can be scary in that way because you kind of almost glorify them and put them on this pedestal of like this unattainable, like they're never wrong, or you can never question them, or they're not going through life for the first time either. So this was kind of that, where a lot of the daughters were looking at their moms in a different light, why they made the decisions that they did, but also acknowledging how that then in turn affected them. So yeah, Family Lore, 5 stars, 10 out of 10 would recommend. My next one was in April. It was Legendborn, which is by Tracy Dion. This was a reread. I did a video where like a reading vlog, so check that out if you want. I read this back in 2023, but I decided to reread this one along with Bloodmark because Oathbound had just came out. I still haven't read Oathbound, so hopefully 2026 is the year for that book. But I reread this. I think I initially gave it 4 stars on the first read, But after rereading it, I had to move it to 5 because this was honestly so good, and I hope that we can get this to film or a series, because this is like, it's too good to not be adapted. Legendborn is about Bree. She goes to early college in North Carolina. She loses her mom about like a year or so before this. She decides to go to this early college because that's where her mother went. When she gets to UNC Chapel Hill, she sees magic for the first time, or ether, and she's sucked into this world of magic and pages and chapters and all things that you just would not expect when you get to a college campus. This book talks about race, class, magic, King Arthur. Like, it's just all the things, super high fantasy, but also very contemporary. I really enjoyed this book. I annotated even more once I did the reread. So yeah, this was now a 5-star read in my book now. So yeah, that was my April read. I only read this and Blood Marked in April. April was a really slow month for me. May, I gave 2 books 5 stars. So first one is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this mainly on my Kindle, but I had the physical book, but I just transferred all my notes, which is a lot, honestly. Monday's Not Coming is about a girl. Her name is Claudia. So Claudia is friends with this girl named Monday. School is about to start, so she starts school, and her friend Monday is not there. And she seems to be the only one really concerned about where her friend is. A lot of people are just like, maybe it's an off day, maybe she's just not here today, maybe she's sick. But weeks and then months go on where her friend just is not showing up to school. And this talks a lot about how people just do not care about little Black girls, nor do they believe little Black girls, because no one cared that Monday was missing, but also no one believed Claudia when she said Monday was missing, minus like one teacher that did believe her and tried to help investigate. But there's only so many things that you can also do in that situation. A lot of people knew that Monday's parents were kind of like hit or miss, but again, still nothing of it. So it talks about the parentification of young Black girls, about missing Black girls, about the lack of care of missing Black girls. This book was heavy, very timely as well. And I know it took place in DC as well. And I feel like there's a lot of missing Black girls in DC that are still missing, and a lot of people are still kind of, oh, what did she do? What kind of girl was she? And it shouldn't matter if she was fast or super smart or whatever. Like, it's just a girl, she's missing. We should care about that. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of that was really hard to get through, because I don't like victim blaming, especially when it's young girls who had nothing to do with why they were missing. It was someone else completely. This was a 5-star read. I love Tiffany D. Jackson. She was one of my top authors of this year. I read 5 of her books. She's definitely up there in the top authors for me now. But she always knows how to pull the heartstrings and really gets a great emotional read, even in a young adult book. It's crazy how she does it. But yeah, that was one of my 5-star reads for May. And then the next one was A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Love Tia. This was an amazing read. This is magical realism, contemporary romance, a little bit of history kind of thrown in there. All things I love. I didn't know how it was going to work out. I saw a lot of mixed reviews about this book, but honestly, 5 out of 5. Chef's kiss. It was also crazy because, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I listened to Flamboyance about Black queer icons during the Harlem Renaissance, and this kind of takes place during the 20s and 30s as well. There's some parts in the book that goes from past to present, and I just thought it was interesting how one of the main characters, Ezra, is a musician, blues. Like, I don't know, I just loved the connection. I think you'll really enjoy this if you like magical realism. It has some hints of like the sister dynamics and family drama, as well as just like that independent kind of black sheep of the family main character Ricky is. She's very unconventional and misunderstood, which I really enjoyed seeing that in a protagonist. I did a whole video where I like fan casted the book, and it's all based off preference, but I said Tinashe, she just gave younger sister vibes. And then I said, I can't think of his name, but he's a guy on TikTok who's like a model. Like, it was just great. I loved it. It was kind of a Cinderella-esque story too, so I kind of like that. But yeah, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde was 5 out of 5. Next one for the month of June, I have 2 5 stars as well. I forgot to pull it off the shelf. It is Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends by Tia Williams. So another 5 stars for Tia. I love this book. It was her first young adult book, and it's a spinoff or a sister book to 7 Days in June. Audrey is Eva's daughter. So we follow Audrey as she's in her last year of high school, trying to basically come up with the perfect thesis for her application for, I think, Stanford. So she's very smart, into psychology. She's the school's therapist, but she doesn't know how to have fun. So that's where Bash comes in. He is a recent graduate of the high school she attends, and he just moved there, but he's instantly cool, instantly popular. So she's like, I need to hang out with this guy. So initially it's kind of, we're just friends. I'm just using you for my project, but obviously it develops into something more. But I love how, even though this is young adult, it touches a lot on mental health, especially anxiety. And it talks about toxic masculinity. As for Bash, because he's not as masculine presenting, or he's not the typical vision of what masculinity is, especially for Black young men. So I just love that even though it's young adult, we can still have very deep conversations about mental health, about masculinity, about family dynamics. Her mom has a chronic illness, and we get to see how she was parentified and had to take care of her mom a lot of the times when she would be in crisis. So I enjoyed seeing also that lens from Audrey, because in 7 Days in June, we kind of see her in the lens of her mom, but also how she's just such a great daughter. Like, she is amazing how she steps up for her mom. But in here, we kind of humanize her more and see, you know, your mom didn't choose to be sick, but it's also unfortunate that you were the primary person who had to take care of your mother when she was supposed to be taking care of you. So yeah, love this book, 5 stars. My next 5-star read for June was King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. I love this book. I bounced between audiobook and the physical book for this. I really enjoyed this book. High speed chase, family dynamics. Again, all my favorite things. We follow Roman Carruthers. He is the oldest out of 3. So it's him, it's Nevaeh, his middle sister, and his youngest brother is Dante. Roman is a money man. Financial management is his thing. He's in Atlanta right now. And once his father gets in a hit and run accident that leaves him in a coma, he goes back to Virginia to figure out who did it and why. He finds out that it was not just a run-of-the-mill, oops, I did it accident. It was targeted because his brother Dante got mixed up with the wrong guys. So now he has to figure out how to pay off those people, but also seek vengeance. Anything again, S.A. Cosby, I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to probably give it 5 stars. It's just an automatic no-brainer at this point. S.A., if you're hearing this for whatever reason, love you. Please, no rush. But whenever you have that next book, let me know. I'm excited. I know 2 of your books are being turned into series right now, like Oh, the Sinners Bleed. I'm hyped. And I would love to be at the premiere. Let me stop. But yeah, I can't wait for that to come out. Like, what the heck? But anyway, King of Ashes is great. You need to add S.A. Cosby to your book list if you have not, because he's just truly a talent. And I love how he writes about the South, about Southern Virginia, about family. And I love how, especially in this book, he does morally gray characters so well. And usually, like in books, you want to root for the protagonist, but he really kind of makes you lean for the antagonist, because you're kind of looking at this protagonist and like Roman, like, okay, like we could give you the benefit of the doubt for that, but now that's too far. Like, I just love when you have to question even the protagonist. So he does a great job at that. My next 5-star read for the month of July, I have 3 actually. And the first one is Black Panther Woman by Mary Frances Phillips, The Political and Spiritual Life of Erica Huggins. I went to her book talk in February of 2025, and I did not start reading it until June, and I finished it in July. Just because I have to be in the mindset sometimes for these types of books, because I knew it was going to be heavy. We follow Erica Huggins. She was a member of the Black Panther Party, and we mainly follow her in the 3 phases of her life. So as a child to a young adult, and then when she became a wife and a mother, and then when she was incarcerated, and then post-incarceration. This book really highlights her role in the party, as well as what her role was when she was incarcerated in the women's prison. She was framed for the killing of Alex Rackley with Bobby Seale. So we kind of see that aftermath and her time in prison and what that was like, which was obviously horrible, very torturous. How she still made something positive out of the experience by connecting with a lot of the women that were incarcerated alongside with her. She did a lot of protests while she was incarcerated, a lot of food protests. She talked about discipline and yoga and how she found spirituality while she was in there. So while it was a very depressing time, I admired her discipline and her strength in this moment. And then her post-incarceration, what she did afterwards, was very, very interesting. I always love a book that talks about the women in the party. I think oftentimes any media, we kind of focus more on the men, but the women truly were the backbone of the party. So I was glad to learn more about Erica Huggins as well. So yeah. My next 5-star was actually an audiobook. It was A More Perfect Party by Juanita Tolliver. I gave that 5 stars. That focused on Shirley Chisholm during her campaign run to be president, the United States president, and how she got a lot of backing from a lot of celebrities that we did not know, and kind of the lead up to her run. I knew a little bit about Shirley Chisholm, first Black woman to run for United States president. I knew she was an unconventional candidate, but I didn't know too much else about her besides that. So it was very interesting to learn about her upbringing, being Caribbean in New York, and how that shaped how she campaigned, how even like a lot of people in the Black community were very hesitant at first to vote for her as well. How it kind of took some time to build even that connection, but once she did, it was kind of a shoo-in for her. I also like learning about the celebrities that were kind of involved, and how she also had like a lot of support from like the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, Diane Carroll. I was just like in awe. I love history and I love learning more about people that I knew of, but I had no idea about their upbringing and how they even got to wanting to run for president, and then post that. So that was very interesting as well. So I gave that 5 stars. And then I gave This Could Be Forever by Ebony Liddell 5 stars. I actually read the physical book, but I got it from my library. Support your local library. This is my little PSA. Love Ebony. Love Radio was really good. This Could Be Forever was about 2 college students who go to the University of Maryland in College Park. And it's like the summer before their freshman year starts. I forget their names, but the main character is a tattoo artist, and I want to say he's Southeast Asian. I cannot tell you exactly what country he's from, but he's Southeast Asian. And then we follow our female main character. She is from North Carolina. She's Black, and she has a small business. She's really into homemade skincare, and she's going to be like a scientist. And so they meet when she goes to a tattoo parlor with her sister. She meets him, he does her tattoo, and he basically asks her on a date literally right afterwards. She says yes. They go see cherry blossoms, and it's super cutesy and romantic, but it also talks about the cultural differences that they experience. Kind of like that standard, you go to college for one thing because your parents want you to study XYZ, but when you get there, you want to do something completely different that fits more of you and your personality. So we kind of see also those factors of cultural differences going against the grain when it comes to your family, and how you can resolve all of that while being only still 18, 19 years old. So again, I love young adult anything, especially young adult romance that focuses on the romance, but also focuses on the individual characters, and we see progression throughout the book. I really enjoy that as well. I have 3 for August. The first one is The Girls That Grew Big by Layla Motley. This was my first read by Layla, and it will not be my last. I truly, truly, truly enjoyed this. It's about a bunch of girls, literally labeled The Girls, in Florida, in a quiet beach town in Florida, who are all pregnant or have been pregnant as a teenager and have very little family support. They lean on each other for support when it comes to taking care of their child and during the time of their pregnancy. So Adela, she comes from Indiana, if I'm correct. She was a promising track star, got pregnant. Her parents sent her down to this beach town to stay with her grandmother while she was pregnant so she can give birth and then return and basically continue pursuing her track star career. She gets down there and she's not very close with her grandmother, and she doesn't want to get close to the girls because she's like, I'm not like them. You know, they're low class, they're black. Adela is black as well, but she is very whitewashed and has been conditioned to believe, you know, I didn't ask for this. Like, I have opportunities, they don't, kind of energy. Like, she's a little uppity. And then we meet Simone, who has twins, and she was a young mother as well, but now she's 20, so she's like the eldest of the girls and the mother of the girls. And she finds out she's pregnant again by her baby daddy of her twins. But we see her in this conflicting, I want more for my life now. Do I want to keep the child? Do I not? And then we see Emery, who is having a son with Simone's brother, but Simone's brother kind of is checked out, like completely kind of out the mix. And also Emery is white, so her grandparents do not approve of her baby father. So it kind of makes it hard to even have the family support, because they're like, you want to have a child with a black man? We're gonna let you just to the streets. And then we just see a slew of other girls kind of in and out as well, who are also young moms, who are either pregnant or who have had their child and they're kind of just taking care of themselves with the support of the girls. It's very sad because they're young, and a lot of them, honestly, you see that they are victims, and you see that how and why they're pregnant is not their fault, but the town blames them for their circumstance, as if it doesn't take 2 to tango. And when you see who they tangoed with, it's a much older man. It's a man who knew who he was dealing with, but still did it anyway. But he does not get any of the heat they do. You see, it's a girl who did have a promising future, who, like Emery, she's very smart. She's determined to go to college. We see Adela, she's very athletic, very talented, and to be this track star. But as soon as this happens, it's like all of that is gone, and now they're just somebody's mama, so, like a baby mama, you know? It's unfortunate to see the victim blaming and how they're blaming it solely on them, when it's like it took 2 people. Especially in Simone's case, she was like 15 or 16, and her man, or the man she was with, because I don't even want to call him that, was like 25, 24. Like, he was grown. Like, that was not, to me, consensual. That was not consensual, not to me. That was just not consensual. It is heavily blamed on Simone for being in that situation. And I think she realizes that as she's 20, being pregnant by that man again, he's now 27, 28, she's like, I can't now have a child with him again. You know, like, it's just the dynamics. Like, her brain is starting to develop where she saw that that was a problem. Like, that was not a good situation that I was in, that I thought I was at 15. So yeah, this book is very real, very raw. It's not cookie cutter, it's not perfect. And I really like that about this book. And it also sheds light on a group of people that are often shunned. And yeah, it just gave an interesting perspective, and I really enjoyed that. My next 5-star was Women, Race, and Class by Angela Y. Davis. But I love Angela Davis. Anything she writes, I'm going to read it. Quite a bit that I tabbed off, but it just talks about the interconnectedness of being Black, being a woman, and then living in the United States. It talked about the anti-slavery movement, talked about the birth of women's rights, the influencing rise of racism, the myth of the black rapist. Like it kind of hit on everything. And I remember reading excerpts of this in my Black feminism class in college. And I was happy to get the book so I can read the rest. I truly, truly enjoyed it. And I think everyone should definitely read it. If you want to learn more about Black feminism specifically, because it talks about all of that. Read it. And then my other read was on my Kindle. What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez by Claire Jimenez. I read this while I was on vacation in Minnesota, and I read it literally in one day. Like, it was so good. It was about a mother and daughter or two sisters and their mom. Their father was in the mix, but I don't know where he was at. I can't 100% remember that part. But one of the girls goes missing, right? And, oh wait, I lied. It was three sisters and their mom. One of the sisters goes missing, and two of the sisters kind of were too young for them to do their own investigation when she went missing. And the mom kind of went into this psychosis of a sort, I guess you could say. And so years go by, one of the sisters is married and has a child. The other one is kind of just floating through life. And they're watching this reality TV show, and they see this girl that looks like their sister, but like 10 plus years later. And so at first they're like, that's not her, it can't be her. But they continue to watch the show, and they're like, no, I think that's her, like down to the mole that she had on her face, and how she acted and things she said in the confessionals. They were like, this has to be her. So they go on this hunt with their mom in tow to find their sister and missing daughter. And the story is just, it's depressing, but it's very interesting how the motivation is never fully lost of finding a missing loved one. Yeah, we would go back in time. So it was kind of some time jumps. So like present day when they were like actively looking for her, and then the past of like what she was like as a child, and how, you know, she used to walk home from school by herself and do all these things by herself. And it was kind of speculated that she was fast. And so they don't know if she got in a car with someone, if she went off with someone. Like, it was just so many different speculations and versions of what they think happened, because they don't fully know how and where she went missing. But yeah, it was very interesting. It was very deep, very sad. And the ending was gut wrenching, like honestly, truly. I won't give it away, but it's on Kindle if you have it. I would definitely recommend that book. Yeah, I was kind of a little like spooked afterwards, because it was kind of like, it was real. It was very scary and very real. For September, I only had one 5-star, and that was Pretty Girl County by Lakita Wilson. I am biased. I'm from PG County, so I think this was gonna be a 5-star regardless, but it was actually really good. I love a good YA book, and it follows two girls, Summer and Rhea, who live in Prince George's County. Summer lives in Seat Pleasant. Rhea lives in Bowie. Rhea at one point did live in Seat Pleasant, but once her mom became a Real Housewife of Potomac, they moved to Bowie, and it kind of separated the two girls. And it talks about class differences. It talks about just girlhood and friendship, and how you can fall out with your friend and then get back with your friend and then fall out with your friend. Like, that's kind of like that high school thing. It really talks more about on the class end and gentrification end of things, especially like in Seat Pleasant, because Summer's dad owns a bookstore, but it's later figured out that, what the heck? It's later figured out that her dad's been offered a payout for them to bulldoze the bookstore and put whatever, you know, lofts or stores or apartments there, right? So it's also that dynamic of like gentrification in Prince George's County, and how Bowie is very like affluent and slowly becoming very white. And then like literally 20 minutes down the road in Seat Pleasant, it's predominantly Black, more working class, middle class group of people. how you're in the same county and people are on vastly different ends of the pay scale. It's very interesting. I loved that a lot of the local things were highlighted, like the Sports and Learning Complex and the National Harbor and the MGM. So yeah, I just love that. I love knowing all the references and being able to visualize 495 and the traffic and all the things. So yeah, I love this. Love a good young adult book. For October, at 3 5-stars. So the first one was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This was her first book ever. And I was like, let me get a Toni Morrison book. I've listened to quite a few of her books, like Jazz and Sula. I have not picked up and read the physical book. And I read this in one sitting. Very haunting, very scary, just very real. We follow Pecola, who is a dark-skinned little girl who is often mocked because of her complexion and her features, and she often wishes to have blue eyes, and at the end of the book she gets her blue eyes. But there's so many things about this book that's very scary. I think because it's more so real, less about like monsters and stuff like that. Or it is monsters, but how people are monsters, how men are monsters, and how systems of oppression is the monster. Like racism and colorism is the monster of how we've been conditioned to believe blonde and blue eyes and thin is in. And it's the standard of beauty, and how a lot of people, especially young people, get caught up in that vicious like. So my mic cut out. Luckily, it was at the end of the video, but I have a couple more books that I want to get into. So I just want to finish up my point about The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. It just gets into the standard of beauty that is usually unattainable and will never be fully achieved. And to see Pecola go down that dark rabbit hole was truly saddening. And like, I think I said it, but I just could not think about anything else for a couple hours after reading it. My next 5-star read was The Perfect Victims by Mohammed El-Kurd. This is about dignifying Palestinians during a literal genocide and not feeding into that weird narrative that everyone is trying to portray, that it's a war on both sides. Just dignifying the victims and not victim blaming. I think a lot of news outlets and people who get online who have all these think pieces about what's going on in Palestine often always make it a point to say, well, you know, if they just act accordingly and do the right thing, they'll stop bombing them. And it's like, what can someone do? What can one group of people do to make you want to bomb them? And what can they do to then blame them for the bombing another entity is causing? You know what I mean? Like, it's just mind-boggling, like that whole situation. But this was a very good read, and I connected it to a lot of different conversations about victims as well, where in any situation, why is the first instinct for anyone is to blame the victims and play devil's advocate? And then it goes into the conversation of when we do empathize, we only empathize with certain people. So a lot of news outlets would be like, the women and children don't deserve this. The women and children should be safe and protected. And always shun or ignore the men, the Palestinian men, who are also very much so innocent in this situation. My next 5-star read was Asada by Asada Shakur. It's her autobiography. We follow her pre-Black Panther Party when she was still very new to the liberation movement. And then we see her when she's incarcerated after she was wrongfully pulled over and accused of murder. We see her time in and out of multiple prisons across the United States. We see how she was mistreated and how the prison system, I'm all for abolishing prisons, was not rehabilitative. It was actually debilitating. It actually was very harmful for her physical, mental, emotional well-being. And then we saw her once she was able to leave prison and restart her life, basically. So this wasn't a great read. It was definitely long awaited on my list of reads. And I wish I didn't wait so long to read it, but I'm so glad I did read it when I did. Highly, highly, highly recommend this. And if you can get the physical, get the physical. you know, with the way everything is moving with like banning books and not selling physical copies of anything anymore, these are the reads that we truly need to make sure we have in our libraries. My last 5-star read of 2025 was The House of Eve by Sadika Johnson. I love Sadika Johnson. I read Yellow Wife 2 years ago, and it still is a book that I think about every so often, about how impactful and memorable it was and how emotional I got when I read it. This is historical fiction. We follow two girls, or two young women, Ruby and Eleanor. Ruby is a 15-year-old girl from Philadelphia who is on the fast track to college. She is from a lower income neighborhood. She bounces between living with her mother and her aunt. She is in this almost talented and gifted type of program where she takes weekend classes, and this program is meant to help her when she's applying to colleges just look better and she has more experience. She finds herself, you know, really liking this guy named Swish, if I'm correct, in her apartment building, and he is Jewish. That's already a dynamic that is a no-no because this is the 50s. I did not mention that. So we're in the 50s. You know, interracial marriage has not been legalized whatsoever. Like, we're 20, 30 years before it even happened. So we're seeing those elements. We're seeing the class differences. And then we see Eleanor, who is a young black woman who goes to Howard University, very bright. Like, again, similar to Ruby, she has the whole world ahead of her. She meets William. He's from an upper class, rich, black, affluent family in DC. You know, they get together and she winds up pregnant, but his family is completely against anyone who is darker than the paper bag and anyone who doesn't have 3 homes, basically. And so we see those dynamics as well. And these two women that you would think are unlikely to cross paths because they're in different places, they're different ages, different places in life, they do cross paths in a very interesting way that I will not give away because I want you to read the book. But I truly, truly, truly enjoyed this read. It was very emotional for me just because it talked about experience of like being a black woman and having to look a certain way, act a certain way, not react this way, always be about the books, but also somehow juggling, you need to get married, you need to have kids at this certain age, you need to do this, you need to look like this, you need to maintain this. Putting yourself first is not always what everyone wants it to look like. And I thought that was interesting because, again, the time period we're in, the 50s, where like women were going to school, but it was like school was really the hunting ground, or it was treated as such, at least. Like, yes, get your education, but the main point was you're going to leave here with a man. And especially in Eleanor's case, where it's like, I'm really actually about the books. I really actually want to figure out, you know, what's my life going to look like. And so, I don't know. I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but I really enjoyed that read. I really recommend it if you have never read anything by Sadika Johnson or you love historical fiction. Like, this is really, really good. And yeah, I'm so glad that that was my last 5-star read of the year. It really kind of ended it on a high note. But yeah, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and liking my videos, for subscribing. I truly appreciate it. I hope to be more consistent this year. That is one of my goals. I want to be able to post quality videos for you all. I want to just have fun with it. I don't want to feel too limited or put too much stress on myself, but I also do want to post very frequently. So I hope to be more consistent this year, and I just can't wait to see y'all in the next video. Thank you guys so much.